Chapter 1. A Visitor Between the Worlds. The night begins without sound, not the quiet of a sleeping room, but the deeper quiet of everything. The silence that lies beneath existence itself. You are floating there, eyes half closed, watching the soft shimmer of space unfold like an endless ocean of darkness. There are no edges, no walls, no sense of direction. Only motion, gentle, unhurried motion, like a tide that carries you from one dream to another. Out of that quiet, something moves. It is faint at first, a glint no larger than a grain of dust against the black. But slowly, it takes form. A rock, a wanderer, drifting between the stars, with no allegiance to any world. Its name, given by those who watch from far below, is 3 Psi Atlas. But to the universe, names are meaningless. It is simply a traveler, a remnant of something ancient, bound by no orbit we have yet understood. You drift closer. The asteroid is small, a few hundred meters across, perhaps, and yet, in its silence, it feels enormous. Sunlight glances off its surface, revealing scars and pits carved over millions of years. There are no colors here, only tones of gray and rust and shadow. Each groove is a memory of collisions, of burns, of time measured not in seconds, but in eons. It does not burn or blaze. It does not hum or breathe. It just moves. And that, somehow, is its story. Every piece of matter that drifts through space carries a record of motion. Momentum is memory written in physics. Whatever nudged Atlas long ago, perhaps a passing star or a fragmentary collision, still echoes through its path, even now. It is a messenger of events that took place when Earth itself was only dust swirling in a nebular dawn. You wonder what it means for something to travel without destination. Most things we know, rivers, birds, humans, flow toward something, but Atlas drifts without seeking. Its journey is not about arrival, but continuation. Every turn through the black is a kind of meditation, a repetition of the only truth the cosmos seems to know. To move is to exist. You imagine being it, small, cold, untouched by sound or time. The sun is a distant star, no brighter than a lantern behind fog. All around, particles of frozen gas drift like fine dust motes. They sparkle briefly when sunlight catches them, then fade back into shadow. There is beauty here, but it is not the beauty of color or sound. It is the beauty of stillness, of something that endures. As you float alongside, you feel how empty space truly is. Between planets, there are stretches of nothing so vast that even light takes minutes, hours, or years to cross them. This emptiness isn't frightening. It feels restful, like the pause between breaths. Perhaps the universe itself breathes, expanding and contracting over eons, exhaling galaxies, inhaling silence. Far behind you, Earth spins in its quiet orbit. Billions of people sleep beneath clouds, unaware of this visitor threading through the outer dark. Telescopes search the skies and catch faint traces of its passing, a line of light across the black. To scientists, it is data, coordinates, velocity, reflectivity. But to you, watching it now, it feels like something else entirely. It feels like a thought, drifting through the mind of the universe itself. You notice how Atlas glides, not in a straight line, but in a graceful curve, drawn by the invisible strings of gravity. Every mass pulls on every other, no matter how far apart they are. Even you, small as you are, tug infinitesimally on the asteroid. Gravity is conversation, the language the universe uses to stay connected with itself. And Atlas, wordless and ancient, is part of that sentence, spoken softly across the dark. You begin to wonder where it came from. Was it born from a broken planet? Did it drift for millions of years through interstellar night before brushing the edge of our solar system? Astronomers call it an interstellar object, the third ever found, after Oumuamua and Borisov. It does not belong to us. It was not born in the family of our sun. And yet, for a brief moment in cosmic time, it passes through our story, a stranger leaving footprints across our sky. You try to imagine its journey through the cold halo of other stars, past drifting clouds of dust, perhaps through the gravity wells of forgotten worlds. Everywhere it went, it carried pieces of its birthplace, tiny minerals, frozen gases, fragments of alien chemistry. It is, in some quiet way, a message in stone, carrying the texture of another solar system across the vastness between suns. When scientists study it, they will find more than composition or orbit. They will find time itself, pressed into rock. You listen, though there is no sound. But the silence seems full, almost musical. Each atom vibrates faintly, warmed by invisible sunlight, cooled by the infinite dark. You feel as though the asteroid is humming a lullaby too slow for ears to catch. A vibration that began billions of years ago and never stopped. Everything vibrates, even stillness. Perhaps that is why you feel calm here, because motion and rest are not opposites, but two sides of the same truth. You imagine Atlas noticing Mars in the distance, a small red glow suspended in the black. It does not see or think, but its trajectory bends infinitesimally in that direction. Mars, a patient world with winds that whisper through canyons, is waiting. Its gravity is gentle, yet persistent, shaping the paths of passing stones and dust. Atlas drifts onward, unaware of the subtle invitation pulling it closer. You sense that you are following more than rock. You are following a metaphor, the way everything moves because something once moved it. The chain of cause and motion stretching backward without end. And as you drift beside it, you feel your own momentum, the quiet movement of your breath, the pull of your thoughts through time. Even here, in the stillness of sleep, you are part of the same cosmic rhythm. The stars blur softly as you drift farther out. The asteroid grows smaller, its surface fading into distance. But its story remains, like a whisper carried on a current of air. You realize that every traveler, from the smallest atom to the grandest galaxy, is bound by the same invisible force, the desire, or perhaps the necessity to continue. Soon, the darkness deepens again, and you feel yourself slowing, floating at the edge of thought. Behind you, Atlas continues onward, indifferent to your gaze, patient as eternity itself. Its destination remains unknown, its silence unbroken. Yet in that unknowing lies peace, the kind of peace that only the infinite can offer. And as the faint light of Mars glimmers in the distance, you sense the beginning of another story. A story about origins and the ancient cradle where all wanderers are born. Chapter 2. The Birthplace of Wanderers. You are floating outward now, leaving the warm light of the sun behind. Its glow fades from gold to pale silver, then to nothing more than a soft shimmer. The solar system begins to thin. Planets shrink into distant beads, and beyond them lies a vast, invisible border where sunlight grows too faint to warm even the dust. It is here, in this cold and quiet outer sea, that the wanderers are born. They call this place the Oort cloud, a sphere of frozen debris that surrounds the sun like a distant halo. It stretches for trillions of kilometers, so far that even light needs a year to cross its edge. It is not a cloud in the way you know clouds, but a boundless collection of icy fragments, leftovers from the solar system's earliest days when chaos was still shaping order. Every rock, every shard of frozen water carries the echo of that creation. You drift among them, through a silence so complete that even thought feels like a sound. The sun is no longer a presence, only a faint direction, a memory of warmth. Here, there is no day or night, only the eternal calm of deep space. The rocks around you float like slow-moving ghosts, each one spinning softly, each one ancient. Some are the size of mountains, others no larger than a grain of sand. All are waiting, waiting for the slightest nudge that might send them inward, toward the light. Long ago, this cloud was a storm. Billions of fragments collided, merged, and shattered again in the fiery youth of the solar system. When the sun was still young, its magnetic breath pushed dust and gas outward, scattering material into the darkness, where gravity gathered it like drifting snow. Over millions of years, what was once chaos settled into this distant cradle. And though the violence has faded, its memory remains, written into the orbits of every wandering stone. You imagine the beginning, a disk of gas and dust circling a new star, glowing with the heat of birth, particles bumping, clumping, colliding, building worlds grain by grain. Planets formed, then moons, then the leftover pieces that never found a home. They were cast outward, flung to the edges of gravity's reach, not lost, but stored, like thoughts placed gently at the back of the mind. The Oort cloud became that memory, the solar system's oldest archive. Somewhere among these frozen relics, the traveler called 3I Atlas may have been born. Perhaps it once circled our sun in a long, lonely orbit. Or perhaps it was drawn here from another star's cloud, a guest wandering through foreign skies. Scientists still do not know. Its velocity is strange, its trajectory foreign, the signature of something not of this home. It could be one of billions that drift between star systems, carrying the dust of alien worlds. You reach out, or at least, you imagine you do, and touch one of these icy bodies. The surface feels ancient, powdered, brittle. It has not seen warmth in billions of years. Inside it lies frozen water, ammonia, methane, the same materials that helped form the seeds of life. You realize that this place, though silent, is fertile in its own way. It is a field of sleeping potential, waiting for the warmth of a star to wake it. Sometimes, one of these fragments is disturbed. A passing star drifts too close, or the tug of Jupiter's gravity reaches this far edge. A single nudge is enough, and a new journey begins. The object starts to fall inward, slowly at first, then faster. Gravity becomes its guide, sunlight its destination. What was once still begins to move, and what was once forgotten begins to shine again. That is how comets are born. Icy travelers that streak through the inner solar system, their frozen surfaces vaporizing into tails of light. They carry the chemistry of early space into the warmth of new worlds. When one passes near Earth, its dust rains down, leaving trails we call meteor showers. You've seen them. Brief, glittering arcs across the sky, messages from the outer darkness whispering, "We are still here." You float among billions of these potential wanderers. It feels less like drifting through space and more like moving through time. Each rock is a memory, each orbit a chapter in a cosmic autobiography. They have watched stars form, Planets grow, civilizations rise and vanish, and yet they endure. No story in the universe is older than theirs, and yet, through Atlas, you glimpse how every story still moves forward. The emptiness here is not loneliness. It feels peaceful, like the pause between heartbeats. You realize how the universe holds its breath in these outer reaches, how even silence can be creative, storing matter, potential, and memory. The Oort cloud is not an end. It is a nursery of beginnings waiting to happen. Every rock has a chance one day to be called by a name. You picture Atlas long before we knew it. Perhaps it was struck by another stone, thrown loose from its frozen cradle. Perhaps it wandered outward, beyond even this cloud, until the pull of another star caught it. It may have drifted through the interstellar dark for millions of years, passing unseen by worlds we will never know. Until, one day, it found its way back into a solar neighborhood, ours. And for a brief moment in cosmic time, its path intersected with human eyes. You find something comforting in that. The thought that even in a universe so vast, paths still cross, even by accident. Nothing truly disappears. It only drifts until it is found again. The Oort cloud itself is proof of that. The universe's attic, where nothing is thrown away, where every particle still holds its place. The light from the distant sun catches one of these frozen spheres. It glimmers faintly, like an eyelid opening in the dark. The glow is soft, fleeting, a moment of awareness before it fades again. You realize that creation doesn't happen in bursts, but in patience. The Oort cloud teaches stillness. It teaches you that even in the farthest cold, something always waits to begin again. You drift a little farther out, and the boundary between your thoughts and the stars begins to blur. Perhaps your own mind has a kind of Oort cloud, a place where old memories, forgotten dreams, and ancient feelings sleep until they are called again. You feel that connection between mind and cosmos, memory and orbit. Both are spaces where beginnings rest, waiting for motion. A faint vibration hums beneath the silence. Something is stirring, a subtle pull, almost imperceptible. Far away, gravity begins to whisper, calling one wanderer inward, toward the warmth and red glow of Mars. You sense that Atlas is beginning its slow descent. Its story, and yours, are moving toward a new rhythm. And as the last light of the Oort cloud fades behind you, you turn inward once more toward the sun, the planets, and the gentle curve of invisible paths, toward the music written in motion, toward the language of orbits that shapes every journey still to come. Chapter 3. The Language of Orbits. You awaken in motion. There is no sound, no wind, no resistance, only the quiet glide of a path drawn long before your eyes could see it. You are no longer in the frozen silence of the Oort cloud. The sun has grown brighter, a pale lantern hanging in the endless black. All around you, invisible lines are being traced, vast arcs and spirals that crisscross the void. They are not made of matter, but of motion, written in gravity's soft handwriting. Every object, every dust grain, every planet and wandering stone obeys this script. It is the language of orbits, and it is older than sound, older than the concept of direction itself. You cannot see the words, but you feel them. They are curves and inclinations, momentum and attraction, rules that give structure to the infinite. You sense how nothing moves freely here. Everything is connected to something else, however faintly. Even the farthest star tugs upon you, just a whisper of pull, reminding you that isolation is an illusion. You drift beside Atlas again, the silent traveler. Its path is neither straight nor still. It bends in a long ellipse, drawn gently toward the inner solar system. Mars waits somewhere ahead, glowing faintly red through the dark. The orbit of Atlas is not perfect. It wobbles, it tilts, as though the rock itself remembers collisions long past. And yet it continues, steady as breath, unhurried as thought. You begin to see orbits not as prisons, but as music, a harmony composed of motion and balance. Each planet sings a note, each asteroid a hum beneath the melody. Earth circles in one rhythm, Jupiter in another, Neptune in a slower, deeper tone. Together, they form a kind of cosmic symphony, always repeating, never quite the same. And in that music, Atlas finds its own refrain, a short, wandering phrase written across the staves of space. Gravity is the composer. It holds everything in place, not through force, but through persuasion. It does not demand obedience. It simply invites motion to curve. The sun, with its enormous presence, speaks the loudest, but even the smallest moon answers with its own quiet pull. You feel that dialogue, a constant conversation of attraction and response, a language where distance and mass replace words. You watch Atlas follow this grammar without hesitation. No engine guides it, no choice defines it. It moves because that is what matter does when curved space calls it forward. Einstein once described gravity not as a force, but as the bending of the fabric of space-time. You imagine that fabric now, smooth, invisible, stretching beneath all things. Wherever there is mass, the fabric dips, like a bedsheet cradling a stone. And Atlas rolls along that dip, tracing a sentence written billions of years ago. You begin to feel your own motion, your body, your planet, your breath. All orbit something. The Earth turns around the sun. The moon circles the Earth. Your cells flow around the rhythm of your heart. Orbit is not only a physical law, it is a metaphor for all cycles. Everything that endures does so by revolving, not escaping, not stopping, but returning gently to where it began. The universe speaks in loops, not lines. You notice how orbits are never perfect circles. They are ellipses, stretched, uneven, alive with variation. Perfection does not exist in motion. It is the tiny deviations that keep the dance alive. Planets tug on each other, altering their paths ever so slightly. Sometimes they align, sometimes they drift apart. This quiet chaos gives the cosmos its rhythm, the same rhythm you feel in your pulse, in the waves of breath that rise and fall as you listen to the story unfold. Atlas's orbit tells a tale of near misses and patient turns. It drifts past Jupiter's gravitational field, feeling its immense pull. For a brief moment, it trembles in decision, to be drawn inward toward the sun, or outward into the dark once more. Jupiter, massive and kind in its own way, guides the asteroid gently forward, passing it along like a note in the cosmic melody toward the next stanza of its journey, Mars. You sense how orbits define relationships. Every motion is relative. Nothing moves alone. You, Atlas, the planets, even the smallest dust. Each is part of a choreography too vast to see, yet perfectly balanced in its own way. The same gravity that tugs on asteroids also keeps oceans bound to Earth, pulls tides beneath the moon, and holds you here, grounded and safe. It is the same story told at every scale. Connection through attraction, pattern through movement, stillness through balance. The more you observe, the more you understand. Gravity is patient. It does not rush or rage. It waits. It pulls softly, constantly, eternally, shaping time itself. Even light bends to it, curving gently when passing near a massive body. It is a kind of compassion built into the physics of existence, an invisible kindness that keeps everything from drifting too far apart. You think of language again, how every orbit is a sentence, and how every planet writes its own paragraph across the night sky. Earth's orbit brings seasons, light, and rhythm to life. Mars's orbit shapes dust storms and crimson dawns. And Atlas, wandering from another system, has entered this shared grammar now, its path bending into meaning among the familiar lines of our solar story. You drift beside it as the sun grows brighter. Each kilometer closer brings more warmth, more light reflecting off its jagged face. It no longer seems lonely. Its path is part of a pattern, its motion part of a greater whole. You realize that perhaps no traveler is ever truly alone when the universe is so intimately connected. Even in vast emptiness, there is a quiet conversation happening everywhere. Matter responding to matter, motion answering motion. Somewhere ahead, Mars waits on its own invisible track, turning slowly through its long year, its red deserts glinting faintly under sunlight. Its orbit, too, is a word in this celestial poem, a shape drawn not by choice, but by belonging. Soon, Atlas will enter its neighborhood, pulled closer by curiosity written into the fabric of the cosmos. You can almost feel that moment arriving, a crossing of paths between two wanderers that have never met, yet have always shared the same sky. You take a slow breath, feeling the pull of your own planet beneath you, remembering that you too move in endless curves. Your orbit is thought and time and experience, a path that bends, loops, and returns, always drawn by something unseen, yet deeply familiar. And as Atlas drifts onward, the curve of its motion carries you with it, out of mathematics into memory, toward the next silence, where ancient stones remember how the universe once began to move. Chapter 4. When rocks remember. The asteroid turns slowly in the dark, and as you drift beside it, you begin to sense something beyond motion, something ancient, something waiting to be remembered. The sunlight glances across its uneven surface, revealing valleys and scars, ridges where other stones once struck it, long ago. It has no eyes, no voice, yet it seems aware in its own quiet way. Every groove, every fracture is a page, and you realize rocks remember. They do not remember in words or images, but in structure, in chemistry, in the long patience of atoms rearranged by time. Each collision leaves behind a mark. Each orbit alters a layer, faintly. Every particle that touches its skin writes a sentence no one can read. Until now, as you hover here, listening to the story, whispered not in sound, but in stillness. You imagine what Atlas has seen. Before it entered our solar system, it might have orbited another star, a smaller, redder sun, its light softer, its warmth thinner. Perhaps that star died, shedding its light across dust and stone, scattering fragments like seeds into interstellar space. Atlas may be one of those fragments, a child of another system, carrying the faint memory of a vanished dawn. Its surface, though frozen, feels alive with history. Microscopic grains sparkle where cosmic rays have etched them for eons. Some are iron, some silicate, some carbon. Each atom, a witness to the furnace of creation. Each vibration, an echo of energy released long ago. If you could place your hand on it, you would feel the texture of billions of years, the slow compression of time made tangible. You drift closer, and the silence deepens. Here, near the surface, the concept of moment fades. Seconds mean nothing to stone. Its patience is geological, measured in eras, in spans so wide that human words lose meaning. You feel small, but comforted. To exist beside something that old is to realize that even if you vanish tomorrow, the universe keeps its record. You think of Earth, of the rocks beneath your feet, the ones you step on without noticing. They too remember. Each layer of sediment tells a story of wind, flood, heat, and calm. Mountains rise, crumble, and rise again, their minerals holding the imprints of seas that once covered them. Even volcanic stone, born of violence, cools into silence and carries that memory forward, unchanged for ages. The difference between you and Atlas, you realize, is not in what you remember, but how. You hold your memories in neurons, tiny storms of electricity that flicker and fade. The asteroid holds its memory in matter itself. Where you forget, it endures. Where you rush, it waits. Perhaps memory, then, is simply a form of persistence, a refusal to disappear completely. You imagine the early solar system, a chaos of fragments colliding, gravity pulling dust into form, meteors striking young planets like sparks on an anvil. The air was filled with ash and metal and light. Out of that chaos came order, and within that order, life. But the stones never forgot where they came from. Even today, they drift through space like pieces of an unfinished sentence, still whispering the first words of creation. Atlas, too, carries those first words. When it passes through sunlight, tiny molecules on its surface sublimate, turning from solid to vapor in a slow, shimmering sigh. You watch the faint mist drift into space, and it feels like the asteroid is exhaling memories, letting go of what it no longer needs, sharing fragments of its past with the void. You wonder if Mars, waiting ahead, will listen. The planet's thin atmosphere might one day collect a dust grain from Atlas, bury it beneath a dune, and hold it there for 1,000,000 years, a memory passed from stone to soil, from one silence to another. Perhaps, long after humanity is gone, some future mind will uncover that grain and trace it back to this moment, to the quiet crossing between an asteroid and a red world. The thought feels comforting. You begin to see memory not as something human, but as a property of existence itself. Matter remembers form, energy remembers motion, gravity remembers connection. Nothing is ever truly erased, only transformed, rewritten, layered upon itself like the rings of a tree. Even the fading of a star is a kind of remembrance, its light traveling for centuries, telling the story of what once burned. The more you drift, the more you feel time dissolve. The present expands until it feels infinite. You realize that this moment, you, Atlas, Mars in the distance, has happened before, in other forms, and will happen again, endlessly rearranged. Perhaps that is what it means for rocks to remember, not to recall a single event, but to repeat the act of being again and again across ages. You let that thought settle inside you like dust settling on stone. It feels grounding, peaceful, as though you too have become a quiet archive of time. Every experience, every breath, pressed gently into the layers of your being, becoming part of a pattern that will endure beyond your noticing. Memory is not just what you think about, it's what you are. Ahead, the faint glow of Mars grows stronger. The red world waits, patient and unmoving, a planet that also remembers. Its canyons carved by vanished rivers, its rocks stained by ancient storms. It calls to Atlas in silence, inviting it closer, not to collide, but to share stories of what came before. The two travelers, one a world, one a wanderer, will soon meet, their paths aligning in a slow, inevitable approach. You watch, breathing softly, knowing that somewhere inside both you and the asteroid, the same ancient atoms hum, the same memory of stars, the same quiet belonging to time. And as Atlas turns one last time before its long descent toward Mars, you whisper the thought that echoes through every particle of the cosmos. Nothing is ever lost. Everything remembers. Chapter 5. The Magnetic Heart of Motion. The silence between worlds is not empty. It hums with a rhythm too deep for ears to catch, a pulse of energy that connects every drifting thing. You can feel it now, through the quiet pull on your chest, as though the universe itself is breathing around you. Out here, motion is not chaos, it's choreography, and the dancers are bound by invisible hands. Atlas drifts within that vast, unseen web, a slow particle in a cosmic tide. Its path bends gently, not because it wills to, but because space itself is curved and magnetized. Gravity, sunlight, and magnetism. Three invisible voices whispering directions to the traveler, each one tugging, shaping, guiding, until what seems like randomness becomes pattern. You watch sunlight strike the asteroid's surface. Charged particles flow outward from the sun, streams of plasma carried by the solar wind. Each one brushes against Atlas, charging its minerals, making it shimmer faintly with static energy. It's a faint hum of electricity, a ghostly glow that will never reach human eyes. Yet it's there, a soft dialogue between rock and light. Magnetism, you realize, is not confined to metal or machines. It exists wherever motion meets charge. Every atom spinning, every particle of dust, tiny dipoles aligned or scattered in the quiet struggle between order and entropy. Mars, too, carries a magnetic story. Its global magnetic field once wrapped the planet like a soft cocoon, shielding it from the solar wind. But long ago, that shield faded. Now, only scattered magnetic patches remain, ancient scars of a world that once pulsed more strongly. You think of how Earth hums with its own magnetic heart, the molten iron in its core spinning like a great dynamo. That spinning gives birth to a field that stretches out past the clouds, protecting oceans, forests, and fragile minds. Without it, solar wind would peel away the air itself. Perhaps that's what happened to Mars. A cooling heart, a silence where once there was motion. You picture the asteroid gliding closer to the red planet, feeling the faint traces of magnetism like threads in water. Each movement, each angle, responding to invisible geometry. No pilot guides it, no signal from a distant control. Only fields, only forces older than stars. The solar wind streams past both bodies, bending, curling, twisting around them. Space looks calm, but it is full of motion, like an ocean with currents you can't see but can feel. You drift alongside Atlas, watching small eddies of charged dust dance behind it. Each speck glows faintly as sunlight collides with electrons, a faint aurora in miniature. You could almost imagine it breathing, the rock exhaling ions, the wind inhaling them again. It is not life as you know it, but it is a kind of rhythm, the cosmos reminding you that motion itself is vitality. You remember how, back on Earth, a compass needle aligns itself with the planet's magnetic field. That same principle extends across light years. Charged particles obey unseen maps, tracing paths written by fields older than galaxies. Perhaps the asteroid, too, follows such a map, not consciously, but faithfully. Its trajectory toward Mars isn't a random flight, but a response to a deeper harmony. You wonder, could this be the same harmony that governs everything from the spin of electrons to the orbits of stars? A single set of laws, written in every scale, every layer of existence, like a universal heartbeat echoing through the void. If gravity is the drum, magnetism is the melody, and light is the song they create together. The closer Atlas drifts to Mars, the stronger the interplay becomes. Magnetic anomalies near the surface create subtle variations in the field. The asteroid's path curves just slightly, not enough to notice, yet enough to change everything. You feel it too, as a soft tug in your chest, as though the planet's quiet magnetism is calling both you and the asteroid home. The red planet grows larger now, its faint magnetotail trailing like a veil in the solar wind. Atlas glides through it, and for a moment, the ions streaming off its surface join with those escaping Mars. Two small currents meeting, merging, becoming one gentle eddy of energy in the solar sea. And just like that, the asteroid becomes part of Mars's invisible weather, not touching, but connected. You drift above it all, feeling the scale of forces that shape even the smallest grain. Nothing moves alone. Everything responds. The pull of the sun, the whisper of magnetism, the patient gravity of a red world waiting below, all parts of one endless dialogue. The asteroid is just a note in that cosmic song, and you are listening to its verse. You close your eyes. The hum of space becomes a low, calming rhythm. You imagine your own heartbeat syncing with it, slower, steadier, quieter. If you could listen long enough, you might realize that your pulse, the spin of Earth's core, and the drift of Atlas all beat to the same timeless rhythm. Motion, you understand, isn't about speed or direction. It's about belonging. Every orbit is a relationship, every field a conversation. Even silence is movement slowed beyond perception. Mars waits below, not to catch the asteroid, but to feel its passing, the way one wave senses another before they meet. And as the planet's pale light grows, you find yourself wondering, does every world have its own heartbeat, its own magnetic whisper to the universe? The question lingers, unanswered, as Atlas continues its slow descent, and the pull of Mars grows stronger, softly drawing you into the next dream. Chapter 6. The Red Planet's Gentle Pull. From a distance, Mars is no longer a point of light. It is a sphere, half lit, half dreaming. The sunlight strikes its deserts like whispers of gold, and the darkness beyond them deepens the red into something almost tender. You feel the planet before you reach it. Its pull, gentle, like a heartbeat felt through the palm of a hand. Gravity is not a command here. It is an invitation. Atlas responds slowly, its orbit bending with quiet obedience, as though it recognizes this world, as though some ancient kinship draws it near. Perhaps it remembers, in its mineral way, that it was once made of the same dust. For the space between Mars and the asteroid is not separation. It is history, stretched thin. You move beside the traveler, watching the planet swell in your view. Ridges, craters, and dry riverbeds emerge like scars on the skin of an old sleeping god. Once, long ago, these valleys may have echoed with water, streams carving through red clay, rivers pooling in shadowed basins. Now they are dry, but not empty. They remember. The wind that moves through them carries dust from those vanished seas, dust that might once have touched the surface of Atlas itself. Before the worlds parted, the planet's gravity gathers you both in its quiet hand. Not a violent tug, but a slow persuasion. The closer you drift, the more you feel its rhythm. Your motion becomes part of its breath, inward, downward, turning slightly along its curve. You and Atlas are caught in its spell. There is no resistance, only surrender. From this height, the Martian surface glows softly, as though light seeps from within. Its red is not merely color, it is character, the hue of oxidized iron, the memory of stone that once met water and turned to rust. Every particle you see tells a story of transformation, from fire to dust, from motion to rest. The planet itself seems to whisper, I was once alive with storms, and I am still waiting. You drift through the planet's thin exosphere, where the air is more idea than matter. Hydrogen and oxygen, in their ghostly forms, hover at the edge of escape, slipping into space, molecule by molecule. Mars is always exhaling, losing a little of itself to the wind. And yet, in that release, there is beauty. Even decay can be graceful in the language of planets. Atlas passes close, not close enough to collide, but close enough to touch the planet with its shadow. It glides across the crimson landscape below, casting a darkness that moves faster than sound, a fleeting eclipse seen by no eyes. For a moment, the two bodies share alignment. Asteroid, planet, and sun, a cosmic chord struck only once in this vast silence, and then the shadow drifts on, melting into the dusk. You imagine standing on the surface, watching that brief, moving night sweep across the sky. The sun would dim, the horizon would turn rose and amber, and the stars would flicker faintly, even in daylight. It would be a sight so quiet, so full of slow wonder, that even the thin air would seem to hold its breath. But there are no witnesses here, only you and the unblinking face of the planet. As Atlas continues past, dust begins to lift from its surface, particles pulled free by electrostatic charge. They spiral upward, tiny grains reflecting sunlight like silver sparks. They hover, shimmer, then fade into the vast blue-black above. Each one carries a trace of iron, a trace of memory, a piece of Mars that refuses to stay still. You realize how delicate everything is, how even a quiet world sheds itself slowly into the dark. The asteroid's motion stirs the atmosphere, but only faintly. Mars does not fight its visitor, it simply observes. The gravity that pulls Atlas close is the same force that holds its moons, that shapes its seasons, that waits for the next storm to sweep across its plains. To watch this meeting is to see the patience of a world that has learned the art of endurance. You think of how gravity is like emotion, invisible, constant, and binding all things together. It does not command, it persuades. It does not speak, it moves. You feel that same persuasion inside yourself now, a slow surrender to stillness, the pull of sleep, the pull of rest, the pull of the universe asking everything to return to its center. The asteroid curves away now, its closest pass complete. For a moment, it lingers, caught between the tug of Mars and the freedom of space. The balance is perfect, like the pause between two breaths. Then, with quiet grace, it begins to drift outward again, following the invisible arc that will carry it back into the void. The meeting is over, but its imprint remains. A soft ripple in the gravity of both bodies, a shared memory between stone and planet. Below, Mars glows faintly in the fading light. Its polar caps gleam like small mirrors. Its valleys darken into shadow. You imagine the planet listening, not with ears, but with gravity itself, feeling the weight of what has just passed. The air, thin as it is, seems to sigh. You sigh with it. Above you, Atlas turns one last time, its rough surface reflecting the last rays of sunlight. For a heartbeat, it looks like a fragment of Mars itself, set free to wander. You realize that perhaps it is, that all things born of stars are kin, rearranged, recycled, retold. Mars, Atlas, you, all dust, all memory, all bound by the same invisible threads. The planet's pull begins to fade, replaced by the deep calm of open space again. You feel lighter, but not empty. Something of Mars lingers within you. Its patience, its quiet warmth, its enduring hope that one day the silence will bloom again with sound. The asteroid glides on, its journey unchanged, yet not untouched. And as the red world drifts behind, you sense another rhythm rising. Ahead, a soft murmur in the thin air above the planet, where dust meets light and motion becomes song. You follow that sound with your thoughts, the way one follows a melody through fog, and as Atlas fades into the glow of the Martian dawn, you wonder what happens when stone meets atmosphere and the silence begins to sing. Chapter 7: Echoes Through the Atmosphere. The Martian horizon curves beneath you like a red-brown whisper. You drift above it, feeling the thinness of the air, the frail veil of atmosphere that hugs the planet like the faintest breath. Mars has always been quiet, but tonight its silence trembles. Something ancient and nameless passes through that fragile boundary. Atlas, the traveler between worlds. It does not strike. It only grazes, kissing the edge of the sky. The contact is soft, almost tender, a meeting measured not in sound, but in shimmer. For a moment, the cold rock becomes a brush of light. Tiny molecules of carbon dioxide, awakened by the passing heat, begin to sing in wavelengths unseen by human eyes. They glow and fade in soft ripples, like embers drifting through water. You imagine standing on the Martian surface. Though there is no air to carry the sound, you feel the vibration through the ground, through the dust. The atmosphere hums faintly as the traveler moves through it, each collision between gas and stone releasing a heartbeat of light. It is the closest thing Mars has to music. Atlas slows, as if caught between two instincts, to fall or to flee. Gravity pulls, friction warms, and the ancient rock remembers the feeling of a sun it has not seen in a million years. A faint trail forms behind it, not smoke, not flame, but a silver shimmer that curves along the planet's rim. The Martian sky, usually pale and patient, now glows with the memory of motion. You follow this glow through the thin atmosphere, tracing the invisible boundary where sky becomes space. Up close, you can see the dance of molecules, invisible until disturbed, obedient until provoked. Each one collides, releases light, then disappears into calm again. The process repeats endlessly, a silent cascade that only lasts seconds, but feels eternal. Mars watches, unblinking. It has seen countless visitors, meteoroids, dust storms, frozen fragments, but few leave such a gentle mark. Atlas does not scar the planet. It does not crash or burn. It only speaks, briefly, in a whisper of heat and motion, then continues on its way. The red planet keeps the memory, faint but unforgotten, within its thin air. You drift alongside Atlas, feeling its struggle against drag, its slow loss of energy. The warmth around it fades. Its luminous trail begins to thin, curling like mist. You can almost hear the molecules quieting again, settling back into stillness. The thin winds resume their endless wandering across dunes and craters. Above, the stars return to sharp focus, unaffected, eternal. And yet something has changed. Mars now holds a story, a brief encounter etched into its sky. The dust in its upper atmosphere will carry that story for days, scattering the last remnants of light each dawn and dusk. From the planet's surface, an observer would see faint streaks of silver across the horizon, like dreams dissolving into morning. You think about how sound behaves in such thin air. On Earth, a falling meteor sings with thunder. On Mars, the same fall would be nearly silent, the air too light to carry the note. But silence does not mean absence. The energy still travels, still stirs the molecules. It hums beneath the threshold of hearing, like a heartbeat under ice. The echoes are there, waiting for a listener patient enough to feel them rather than hear. As Atlas drifts away from the planet's grasp, you realize that this encounter was never violent. It was an exchange of motion, of warmth, of identity. The asteroid gave a fraction of its speed. Mars gave a breath of resistance. In that delicate balance, energy moved between them like a sigh. Nothing was lost. Everything simply changed form. You feel it too. The transfer, the subtle connection between moving bodies. How every interaction, no matter how brief, alters the path of both. The traveler leaves with a new trajectory, faintly shifted by Mars' invisible pull. The planet keeps a touch of warmth, a trace of dust that will circle its atmosphere for years. Even in space, where things seem cold and indifferent, every meeting leaves a mark. Atlas now drifts beyond the upper haze, back into the black clarity of space. The glow around it fades completely. No one would know what had happened unless they looked closely, measured carefully, or listened with instruments more sensitive than any ear. Yet you felt it. The momentary brush between two worlds, the exchange of light, the shared silence afterward. You turn back once more toward Mars. Its surface glows dimly, touched by sunlight from a distant angle. Shadows stretch across ancient plains and craters that have not changed in millennia. The planet exhales, and the faint trail of Atlas dissolves into its upper air, lost to time. But somewhere in that thin atmosphere, a few drifting particles still carry warmth, the echo of the visitor's passing. You let yourself float in that stillness, letting the concept of collision change in your mind. It is not destruction. It is conversation. Every impact, every touch, even the softest brush of air against stone is a form of exchange, a dialogue written in physics and silence. The asteroid continues onward, its course now slightly curved. The planet returns to its solitude. But the space between them hums with memory, an invisible bridge of what was shared. You imagine tracing that bridge, feeling the faint current that still runs between their paths, like the last vibration of a string after the music ends. You breathe slowly, matching the rhythm of that unseen hum. You think of all the moments when things meet but do not collide. Clouds and wind, thoughts and time, dreams and sleep. Contact without destruction, change without loss. The cosmos is full of such moments, small exchanges that make up the quiet structure of existence. As Mars grows smaller beneath you, its horizon turning to a line of red light, you follow, Atlas once more into open space. The glow of the encounter fades behind you, but the warmth of it lingers, a reminder that even silence can sing. And somewhere ahead, beyond the reach of Mars's gravity, new dust begins to form, faint particles breaking free, carrying with them a memory of friction, of light, of meeting. They drift outward, slow and weightless, scattering across the void. You sense that this is not the end of the story. The dust will travel far, joining other fragments, merging with the endless circulation of light and matter. Each particle carries a story now, the memory of contact, the trace of soundless fire. You close your eyes as the glow fades entirely. The air of Mars has fallen silent again. But in the silence, you can still feel the vibration, a whisper that does not end, only softens, until it becomes the beginning of something else. Chapter 8: Dust, Light, and Memory. The light from Mars stretches outward, soft and red, fading into the quiet expanse where Atlas once passed. For a long moment, nothing seems to move. Then slowly, dust begins to shimmer. It turns in the thin breath of solar wind, each speck catching sunlight like a secret. You watch it drift, patient and weightless, the last trace of a traveler now gone. This dust is not just debris, it is memory in motion. Every grain carries a record of what has been, a history written in minerals, in fractured crystals, in patterns of iron and ice. You imagine touching one of them, a fragment no larger than a whisper, and feeling the warmth of stars older than time itself. The sunlight scatters differently now. You notice how it bends around the particles, weaving faint halos of color through the dark. It's as though the universe itself is painting a quiet afterimage of Atlas, a portrait that will fade, but never truly disappear. These particles will travel for centuries, perhaps millennia, before finding rest. Some may fall toward Mars, joining its thin soil. Others may drift outward forever, becoming part of the endless interplanetary dust that veils the solar system in a faint, ghostly glow. You follow one particle in your mind, a tiny flake of nickel and carbon, born from an ancient collision, reshaped in Atlas's near encounter. It drifts through the weak tug of gravity, crosses the path of sunlight, and begins its long voyage away. It will meet other fragments, merge, separate, and perhaps someday form the seed of another world. You realize, quietly, that creation is not an event, but a cycle. Destruction is only transformation slowed down enough for us to see it. The dust dances in slow spirals. Each turn feels deliberate, like thought. You begin to sense rhythm here, not music exactly, but something that feels like pulse. Space is not silent. It hums faintly with radiation, with the constant murmur of charged particles. If you could translate that hum into sound, it might resemble wind across sand dunes, or waves pulling at a distant shore. It is the voice of the cosmos remembering itself. You wonder, does Atlas remember too? Somewhere within its fractured surface, do the molecules hold stories of every collision, every gravitational whisper? Rock remembers through structure, through the way its atoms realign after impact, through the slow rearrangement of crystal faces as it travels from cold to warmth and back again. Perhaps memory in space is not what we think it is. It is not a thought, but a pattern, a persistent echo of what has once been touched. Far below, Mars continues its slow rotation. The dust that fell into its thin sky now glows faintly at dusk, creating veils of pink and amber light. If a rover were watching from the surface, its cameras might catch the faint streaks, small, invisible reminders of something ancient passing by. But to you, floating far above, the view is vaster. You see the arcs of orbit lines crossing and fading, like threads in a loom. Space weaves endlessly, and everything, rock, light, dust, even time, is just material for its tapestry. The wind from the sun continues, a breath that never stops. It pushes the dust outward in slow, graceful streams. You think of dandelion seeds carried by a soft breeze. Each one finds its path not by design, but by surrender. And maybe that is what the cosmos teaches most gently, that motion and stillness are the same, that drifting is not aimlessness, but belonging to a larger flow. You remember the ancient astronomers who first looked up and wondered why stars moved the way they did. They saw omens in the trails of comets, stories in the paths of planets. In their myths, dust was often the trace of gods, or the ashes of creation itself. You smile softly, because in a way, they were right. Dust is the trace of creation. Every star, every planet, every life ever known was once this, floating fragments, waiting for gravity's touch to gather them into meaning. You look again at the faint trail Atlas left behind, almost invisible now, but still there if you know how to see. It reminds you of breath fading in cold air, of footprints on wind-blown sand. You feel the smallness of your own existence, and yet, at the same time, the enormity of connection. You, too, are made of dust, atoms once forged in collapsing stars, scattered, gathered, shaped into thought and warmth. In a way, Atlas is not drifting away from you. It is returning to where it began. As the last visible fragment disappears into the distance, the void feels different. Not empty, but full of quiet continuation. Somewhere, another asteroid begins its long path. Somewhere, another planet stirs under dawn. The same forces that shaped Atlas continue to shape everything, including the stillness you now feel. And in that stillness, you sense a new perspective forming, that to exist is to move, to change, to scatter and rejoin endlessly. That memory is not lost in the dark, but carried forward in each fragment, each photon, each unseen drift. Chapter 9. The Watchers from Earth. From far beyond the warmth of Mars, the faint dust of Atlas drifts unseen, but not unobserved. On a small blue world, thousands of millions of kilometers away, instruments wake under the cold night sky. Domes rotate, lenses hum, mirrors align. The watchers of Earth begin their silent vigil. You stand among them in your mind, in a high desert, where the air is thin and still, where stars appear sharper than anywhere else on Earth. The telescopes here rise like great metal flowers, turning gently toward the heavens. Each movement is deliberate, graceful, mechanical, yet filled with quiet devotion. They do not look with eyes, but with reflections, gathering the faintest echoes of distant light. Somewhere within one of these observatories, a beam of starlight that left the sun hours ago lands softly on a mirror. That mirror curves the light inward, focuses it, and sends it through wires, through sensors, through algorithms. The faint trace of Atlas appears, a line of light, almost imperceptible, sliding across a digital sky. It is not a bright object. It is small, cold, and silent. But to the watchers, it is a treasure. Each photon they capture has traveled for millions of kilometers. Each one is a messenger, carrying stories of motion, of heat, of reflection. You realize that observation is a kind of listening, that telescopes are not simply machines, but ears pressed to the edge of eternity. On the screens, Atlas is nothing more than a moving dot. Yet in that dot, entire histories unfold. Software plots its orbit, comparing angles and velocities against the records of the stars. Astronomers watch as it shifts night after night, tracing a path that bends toward the sun, then away again. From these small changes, they can tell everything: its mass, its speed, its rotation, even the faint tug of Mars's gravity altering its course. To most, the numbers might seem cold, but to those who wait in the dark, they are music. Every coordinate, every spectral reading, every flicker of brightness is a note in the cosmic score. You can almost hear it, a slow symphony of precision and patience. In another part of the world, radio telescopes listen instead of seeing. They stretch across valleys, enormous dishes catching whispers from space. The dust atlas left behind scatters light, but it also reflects radio waves, faint ripples that travel endlessly until they meet these giant ears of metal. When they do, the signals arrive as static, as noise, as something nearly meaningless, until human hands translate them. You picture a scientist leaning toward the data, eyes half tired, heart half awake. She adjusts filters, refines frequencies, and slowly the noise becomes pattern. It is not sound, not light, but something in between. A signature, a moment of connection between rock and consciousness. You sense her small smile as the signal resolves, proof that something once passing Mars now drifts freely again into the deep. The watchers record everything. They log timestamps, coordinates, angles of reflection. The data travels across cables and satellites, reaching other observatories, other continents. Each new set of eyes refines the story. Through collaboration, a map emerges, a single thread of motion stretching from the outer darkness toward the heart of the solar system. It feels almost human, this act of watching. We look up, not just to measure, but to belong. For every telescope that peers outward, there is a person behind it, imagining what it means to drift freely in space. You realize that when humanity observes, the universe becomes aware of itself. Through thought, through reflection, through wonder, you turn your gaze upward. From the observatory's open dome, the Milky Way stretches like a pale river. Each star twinkles through layers of atmosphere, distorted and beautiful. You understand now that Earth is also a lens, its air bending light, its oceans reflecting it, its people interpreting it. Even the act of looking changes what is seen. The night grows colder. The machinery hums softly. Somewhere nearby, a generator pulses in rhythm with the stars. In the control room, graphs scroll endlessly, not random, but alive with movement. Brightness fluctuates as Atlas's dust trail catches more or less sunlight. From those tiny variations, scientists infer density, composition, even rotation. It's astonishing, you think, how much can be known from so little. The watchers sip coffee, speak quietly, and wait for the next transmission. They know Atlas will fade from view soon, too faint for even the largest mirrors. But the data remains, stored, cross-referenced, archived for future eyes. Astronomy is memory, carefully preserved light. You imagine future generations opening these records, comparing them with new ones, discovering that Atlas was part of a family of interstellar objects, visitors from other suns. Perhaps then, long after your time, someone will trace its path back to the cradle where it formed. The watchers today are only the beginning of that story. Outside, the desert wind rises. Grains of sand move across the ground, tiny echoes of the cosmic dust that floats between worlds. You notice how similar they are, both shaped by wind, both guided by invisible hands. Earth mirrors the sky more than we realize. As dawn approaches, the sky turns pale. The telescopes lower their gaze, resting. The stars fade one by one, replaced by the glow of a waking world. But even as the light returns, The watchers know. The universe does not stop when we look away. It continues to unfold quietly, with or without eyes to see it. You take one last look at the data glowing on the screen, the faint track of a distant traveler. It feels less like a number now, more like a heartbeat. Somewhere out there, Atlas still moves, unknowing of the eyes that followed it, yet bound to them by gravity, by curiosity, by shared motion through the same cosmic sea. You step outside into the cool morning air. The horizon glows with the first touch of sunlight, and the world feels vast again, but familiar too. You realize that the act of watching has changed you, the way gravity changes the path of a passing stone. And as the light strengthens, you close your eyes, thinking softly. Perhaps even silence, when observed closely enough, is full of meaning. Chapter 10. The silence beyond orbits. The watchers on Earth turn away from their screens. The last coordinates of Atlas have been logged. The instruments cool, the telescopes fold their domes shut. The night ends the way all nights do, quietly, without ceremony. Yet above, the story continues. Somewhere beyond the reach of radio and glass, Atlas moves through a corridor of sunlight so thin it no longer feels like warmth. Its dust has settled into faint ribbons trailing behind it, almost invisible, yet not forgotten. The solar system hums on, unbothered. Mars spins. The winds carve new shapes into its ancient dunes. The sun burns, indifferent and constant, its light bending through the debris field like the slow turning of thought. The planets follow their paths, each caught in gravity's patient embrace. Everything moves, but in that motion there is peace, the kind that comes when nothing resists its place. You drift with Atlas now, far from the orbits of planets, into a region where silence is not an absence, but a presence. It is thick and luminous, like velvet stretched across eternity. Here, the language of space changes. There are no echoes, no collisions, no data to interpret. Only the faint vibration of particles passing each other without sound. You can almost feel the stillness settle around you, gentle as dust. You think about what the scientists call heliopause, the boundary where the sun's breath fades and the interstellar wind begins. It is not a wall, but a meeting of silences. Inside it, our star's voice still whispers. Beyond it, other stars speak. Somewhere between those whispers, Atlas glides. It is not guided anymore, not by Mars, not by the sun, but by inertia, the simplest form of trust the universe allows. The light that touches it now is ancient. Photons from distant stars strike its surface, scatter faintly, and move on. Each one carries with it a small story, a pulse from a blue giant long dead, a flicker from a red dwarf still burning quietly. The surface of Atlas becomes a canvas of time, painted not in color, but in memory. You begin to understand. Silence is not emptiness. It is accumulation. Every quiet moment holds everything that came before. You wonder how long it will drift. Millions of years, perhaps billions. Maybe it will be captured again, drawn toward some distant system where new suns rise and new planets are born. Or maybe it will wander forever, a relic of this small corner of space, carrying the mineral record of our solar system into another's dawn. You realize that even in endless motion, there is belonging, because movement itself is the universe's way of keeping its memories alive. Far behind, the sun shrinks to a pale point. The space between stars widens. The warmth you once felt from solar light fades into cold clarity. Yet it doesn't feel lonely. You sense the comfort of continuity. that somewhere light always shines, gravity always calls, and dust always remembers. You are not separate from it. You are part of the pattern, suspended in the same cosmic weave as everything else. You imagine the watchers on Earth once more, their telescopes now silent, their screens gone dark. They look up with their unaided eyes, seeing only a sky full of stars. They do not see Atlas anymore, but perhaps they sense it, the way you sense a memory that's too deep for words. Human eyes cannot follow forever, but the heart of curiosity never stops listening. And maybe that, too, is how the universe observes itself, through the quiet persistence of wonder. You let that thought settle like dust in still air. It feels right that every observation, every whisper of data, every faint photon captured in a mirror is a form of connection. That even in drifting apart, the cosmos remains whole. Entropy may stretch it thin, but not beyond recognition. There is order hidden in the fading, beauty in the decay, meaning in the silence that follows. Time, here, no longer feels like seconds or years. It feels like tide, slow, patient, circular. You feel it in your breathing. Each inhale a gathering, each exhale a release. This rhythm mirrors the universe's own. Stars born from collapse, planets forged from dust, asteroids like Atlas released into the void. Creation and surrender, again and again, until the boundaries blur, and all that remains is motion becoming stillness. You drift deeper into that rhythm now. The stars grow softer, their edges blur. You feel as though you are dissolving into their glow, part of the same gentle continuum. Your body becomes a constellation of warmth, your thoughts a slow orbit around silence. The universe breathes, and you breathe with it. You are both observer and observed, a consciousness suspended within infinity, awake inside a dream that has no end. Somewhere, perhaps light years away, another traveler begins its journey inward, toward another sun. Another watcher lifts a telescope, begins to listen. The cycle continues, unseen, unhurried, unbroken. The universe needs no conclusion. It only needs continuation. The silence deepens. It is soft now, like sleep folding over thought. You sense the faint hum of atoms vibrating, the residual warmth of ancient collisions. Everything that ever existed, every comet, every planet, every heartbeat, still echoes faintly here. You close your eyes, and for a moment, you hear it. The quiet sound of existence itself. And as you drift with Atlas through this vast stillness, you realize the truth the stars have always known, that nothing truly ends. It only changes form, scatters, gathers, and begins again. The last image in your mind is not of movement, but of calm, a single particle of dust, suspended in the light of a distant star, turning slowly, endlessly, beautifully. And then there is only breath, only stillness, only sleep.